السيد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to the most difficult part of our session, because always after having a heavy meal like the one we have had, it makes it very challenging to the speakers to keep people awake. But I believe with the caliber of my panel members here, we are going to survive that challenge of sleepy sessions after meals. So, welcome again to the session. And as we see, time is not in our favor. It's my belief that the cooperation you give to me will make our task easier and manage it according to the time assigned. I have about 6 panel members who will present, each of them not more than 10 minutes. And I seriously sympathize with my panelists because, you know, the heavy load they carry, telling them to deliver within 10 minutes is a challenge by itself. But based on their experience and based on what has already been done earlier, because whatever we are doing, we are building on what others had already constructed earlier. So it will be easier to summarize some of what they had intended to say earlier, because it will have already been said. Now, without any further ado, I would like to welcome Brother Khalfan Abdullah Salim, who is the principal partner at Brown Consultant, Kenya. His topic will be on pension schemes in Tanzania, Sharia concerns and proposed solutions. Brother Khalfan is very popular. I'm sure in this field, those who do not know him maybe should ask themselves why they do not know him. He's been participating in a number of activities, especially those related to Islamic finance, wealth management, halal products, and you name it. He's an experienced trainer and consultant as well in Islamic finance, in the areas of Islamic banking, Islamic insurance, Islamic pension schemes, Islamic capital market, and Islamic microfinance institutions. Besides, I mentioned earlier that Sheikh Khalfan has also worked a lot in the area of wealth management, leadership and management, financial education, as well as business and entrepreneurship. Currently, he is a Sharia board member of Momentum Credit Limited, which is based in Nairobi. And for more information, I'm sure after the session you'll get an opportunity to exchange cards. You can visit his website where you'll get a lot to know about him. Now, Brother Khalfan, may I welcome you and give you 10 minutes. I think if you can make it up to 13:40, that would be great. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala, amma ba'd. Beloved participants, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also thanks the organizer for giving me the opportunity to share with you on this aspect of pension Sharia concerns and proposed solutions. I had to change a bit the title from the pension to social security schemes, because I think that is where we can look at it from the broader perspective. One of the speakers, Brother Salum, mentioned one of the investment vehicles that are there are pension funds. And so we need to understand a little bit of them, but more so of what we have here in Tanzania and whether they meet Sharia test or not. I'm having some challenges to move my presentation here. Not sure if it's taking time to. It's taking some time to move on. But my presentation will be around 3 major areas. Thank you. So the first one will be on our social security scheme. What is the Sharia position on the social security schemes as a whole, as a concept? And then we will look at Sharia concerns and proposed solutions. Now, with respect to social security schemes, still don't see my slides. Chairman, perhaps you can reserve my 1 minute.
Yeah, sure.
I think the one downloaded here perhaps is not full. It appears to be just the 1 page. Okay, so sorry for that. I think we can now move on. So social security schemes has been identified as a basic human right, and this is since 1948. So it is something that all governments that have accepted this declaration of human rights has to offer to its citizens. So this is very important point, that it is a basic human right. So all citizens in a country deserves to have the benefits that comes out of these particular schemes. In Tanzania, the social security schemes has been defined, as you can see, a kind of collective measure designed to ensure members of the society meet their basic needs, as well as protected from the contingencies of life to enable them maintain a standard living consistent with the social norms. Now, looking at these definitions, you will find that the objective of social security schemes is to enable people to attain and maintain a decent standard of living throughout their lifetime. And on that note, social security policies and strategies have been designed to protect as well as to promote maintenance of income as well as promotion of decent standard of living. Now in Tanzania we have these schemes which are providing social security services or benefits. We have PSSF, we have NSSF, we have ZSSF, Zanzibar, and National Health Insurance Fund. All these are operating under conventional methodology, and they are regulated, or there are laws that are supervising their operations with respect to provision of benefits for old age or sickness or death or unemployment. I want to give you a closer look of these two. And more attention, I want to draw your attention to the highlighted one, the bolded part. On the PSSF, you contribute 5%, the government contributes 15%. On the NSSF, you contribute 10% and the employer contributes 10%. The question is, who is benefiting from the national resources under these schemes? Those in PSSF or those in NSSF? I hope you have the answer just from that look. Now, would this, under the Sharia principles, fair? But let us go on and look at other issues. We'll come back to it if we have time. Principles of social security schemes are based on the following, the five. There is compulsory saving component, social insurance, public support, social assistance, and employer's liability. Now, confining our discussion into social security schemes, the likes of ZSSF, NSSF, PSSF, and national health insurance, these formal security schemes combines compulsory saving and social insurance. The challenge that these schemes are facing now, prominent ones are low-level coverage, as well as limited investment avenues and others. Now, what are the Sharia concerns? But the point of view of Sharia, the overall point of view of Sharia is we have no problems with the social security as we have seen in the definition of it, as these are measures that aim to ensure persons meet their basic needs and they are protected in case of contingencies. Sharia has no issues with that objective because it sees it as noble for a government to do to its people, and it is good that it is one of their basic human rights. There is a hadith here of which the Prophet is reported to have been praying that Allahumma ij'al awsa'a rizqika alayya 'inda kibar as-sinni. That the Prophet used to pray, "Oh God, make your widest livelihood over me when I grow old." So Sharia has no objections with the social security schemes. Social security scheme as a concept of it, but now the issues comes to how Tanzania implements or offers these social security benefits. Now there are three areas that I'll not go over all of this. Perhaps we'll have time to discuss during Q&A due to time constraints. Sharia concerns on social security schemes in Tanzania are on structural basis, and here we have three areas. It is based on conventional social insurance, which has the issues to do with riba, uncertainty, gharar, and maisir. It is based on compulsory saving and compulsory contribution, which Sharia has issues with ikraha. La ikraha fi din. Now how can it be when it is ikraha on saving? Formal sector only. The structural system is, this is for only those in the formal sector. Those who are in the informal sector don't benefit. I draw your attention to the PSSSF again. The government resources are only going to benefit those that are working within the government entities. What about the farmers? What about the others? And they deserve to enjoy these benefits? So there is issue of fairness. If you only focus on segment of people, you ignore the others, it means you are depriving them from that basic human right of having social security benefit. Then investment shortfall. Most of the social security schemes in Tanzania invest in the financial assets of this nature: treasury bills, treasury bonds, and term deposits. Of late, real estate. The real estate, it depends on how it has been done, but we can take it from the face of it as Sharia compliant, but you can see the larger portion of it goes to these other instruments which are not Sharia compliant. And then sin sector, investing by giving loans to companies which might not be Sharia compliant. Of recent, I had one of the security scheme is planning to give loans to its members. And these loans, again, will not filter whether the purpose is Sharia compliant or not. It will just be loans on interest. Another issue is on the governance shortfall. Are these schemes accountable to who? To the members, or to the government, or to the minister? Transparency and fairness, for whose benefits? Are these funds, the way they operate, transparent? Are they fair? The issue of independence. Now some people will think, are these real Sharia issues? Yes, and that's why we have Sharia perspective on corporate governance. And that will be a topic of its own if we are to discuss it. So governance also falls under Sharia parameters that needs to be looked upon thoroughly. Lastly is the issue of administration costs being very high compared to the benefits to the members. Now to conclude, I know most of us or most of you perhaps are members of the schemes. How many of you are members of the schemes? Most of you, perhaps, and most of you as well are not. So, the fatwa that I came across says that for compulsory, if you have joined by virtue of being an employee of a certain organization, you have joined ZSSF or NSSF or PSSF because you work in the sectors of which it is mandatory, Sharia position says it is no sin for you. Okay, it's no sin for you, so you can take the retirement benefits. But on the voluntary side of these schemes, which they have, particularly the NSSF and ZSSF, even an individual can go and join, it is not permissible to join voluntarily. So this is like we are operating on a third-party insurance in the case of cars. So because these ones are mandatory, you have no way out. You join and we're saying you can benefit from the government pension plans, but on the occupation pension schemes, again, there is no sin for you, but you are only required to take what you contributed. Perhaps if somebody will have a question around that, I'll explain later. To conclude, given the low level of coverage and the limited investment regimes, Social Security schemes designed in line with Sharia principles shall facilitate social inclusion, Social Security coverage will be broadened, and also there is a potential of widening the investment base of including other assets the like of sukuk. Now there are conventional bonds, treasury bills. With the embrace of these Sharia compliant principles within the Social Security organization, there is a likelihood of now widening the investment assets as well. So national Social Security policy should be geared towards promotion of social, economic and financial inclusion. Just like we talk about banks should embrace and include everybody. Same has to be upheld by the schemes. So initiatives should aim to understand different needs, address those needs in order to cover those who are not covered by the existing system. With that, thank you so much for your attention and for listening. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you for managing time well, Sheikh Alfan. As I said earlier, we have one big challenge of time. And as chairperson, I wouldn't like to spend my panel members' time in summarizing what has been said. It was loud and clear. Our next speaker will be Mr. Luja Suleiman Zaid. And I'm told that this will be online. He's the head of Islamic Banking Department, Tropical Bank Limited in Uganda. And we'll be talking about appropriateness of the centralized Sharia government system for East African region. As you know, we are talking about East African fraternity, which will later on cement on our African fraternity and our human as well as global fraternity. Now, are you ready? Yes, please. Go ahead. Mr. Luja, you're welcome.
والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I thank the organizers, ALHUDA, and CIBE, Islamic Development Bank, for giving us this opportunity to share what we have in East Africa. Now, the topic I have is the appropriateness of the centralized Sharia governance model for emerging economies in East Africa. Now, the outline, I'll talk about the introduction, then the problem we have, that is the Sharia authenticity deficit, the need for Sharia governance system, Sharia governance approaches, the different Sharia governance approaches we have, then Sharia governance models. Then I talk about the appropriateness of the decentralized Sharia governance system, as we say, then I conclude. Now,
Brother Luja, sorry for interruption. You have about 10 minutes for your presentation, please.
Sure, thank you. Sure. I will make sure that I will finish within time. Now, until 2019, we have seen the global Islamic finance assets growing to USD 2.733 trillion, and that is in over 76 countries. Now, since 1960s, Islamic finance industry has been growing at a considerable rate, annual rate of 15 to 20%. Now, we can note that from 2009, this remarkable rate has started slowing down to the deteriorating rate of 5.5, which has been evident in 2019. Now, the slowdown in Islamic finance growth is attributed most to the Sharia authenticity deficit. All East African countries are still constrained with the choice of the appropriate Sharia governance model. Now, in Uganda, the situation is too bad to the extent that the establishment of the Central Sharia Advisory Council at Central Bank has sabotaged the Islamic banking operationalization until today. Now, the uniqueness of the Sharia governance system because we have had speakers talking about Sharia governance and the uniqueness of it. Why should we have Sharia governance and following, for example, best practices from ILF as prescribed by standards of ILF. Now, this uniqueness necessitates an additional layer of Sharia governance in corporate governance structures. The Sharia governance system establishes the functions, because when we read from the frameworks that have been put on market by some countries of best practices like Malaysia, they have introduced the functions of Sharia review, Sharia audit, Sharia risk management, and Sharia research. Sharia governance in total ensures compliance of Islamic financial business from licensing to winding down. Now, the different models, precisely, there are four world over. There is a proactive model where authorities intervene in Sharia governance system, like the one in Malaysia. Then there is the passive approach, where authorities have the same treatment of both conventional and Islamic financial institutions. This one has been prevalent in Saudi Arabia most recently. Then there is a minimalist approach, that is where authorities have minor intervention and leave Sharia governance at institutional level, and this one is more popular in GCC countries. Then the last one is the neutral treatment approach, that is where the authorities keep silent of Sharia governance practices. Now, from these two, we can have the two Sharia governance models, summarized as the centralized Sharia governance system. It is a best practice to have the centralized Sharia governance system. That is where authorities will be engaged in Sharia, in regulating Sharia. Now, the centralized system, the centralized model, that is where the Central Sharia Advisory Council is established at central bank level for standardization of practices and to act as an arbiter on Sharia matters across the industry. Now, to countries of East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, we find that we don't have Sharia court system. So if we have Central Sharia Advisory Council, it will act as a reference point for courts and arbitrators. Now, for the centralized Sharia governance model, there is no Central Sharia Advisory Council at central bank level. And in this model, each financial institution appoints a Sharia committee of its own. Now, it will be, I've heard of discussions there, it will be like each bank regulating itself. It's like saying there is no central bank. Each bank is going to set its own regulations according to its appetite, which will create chaos in the market. Now, we find that the most popular model to be adopted in OIC member countries and other countries of best practices is the centralized Sharia governance model, to have the central bank and to have government and authorities governing Sharia. Now, the appropriate Sharia governance model, as we have said, is the centralized system of Sharia governance. Now, in conclusion, regulators, institutions, and Islamic finance promoters in emerging markets like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda need to study their country specifics to choose what best suits their circumstances. Now, East Africa being emerging markets that do not enjoy maximum prudence in compliance with laws, they need to involve authorities in Sharia governance system. The UK, because it's the one where the decentralized Sharia governance, or the minimalist where regulators are not concerned with Sharia governance, that system is more popular in UK. So UK have proven to be more prudent in terms of compliance with laws, which is not the case in East Africa here. We are just bringing our people to comply with laws and get familiar with what is required by government. So we need government to engage, and we need government to regulate for Sharia. Now, this model ensures an end-to-end Sharia compliance of Islamic financial business, as I said earlier, and this one will help these countries to gain local and international acceptance. Now for UK, you have seen UK having more robust regulations, and the markets there, the people there in the market, they are familiar and they are used to complying with the laws, which is not the case with these other countries. So with East African countries, we need, and another thing with UK maybe, before I can conclude, is that the UK is a developed economy whereby the GCC countries need to invest their monies in the UK, which is not the case in East Africa. We are just attracting these people, the investors, to come and invest their monies in East Africa, countries of East Africa. Economies in East Africa need to develop a national Islamic finance strategy that establishes a clear roadmap for Islamic finance and also Sharia governance system to adopt. This one has been recommended by OIC. Recently they had a conference in Turkey where all OIC countries were recommended to adopt national development national Islamic finance strategy. Now, to develop local scholars, local Sharia scholars capacity, because one of the issues we had, like in Uganda here, one of the issues we had recently, that discussion was in Parliament, and government came out, and the Parliament came out to say that we have Sharia scholars. Then government said we don't have, and the central bank was saying we are in short of Sharia scholars. Now, how can we solve this issue of having local Sharia scholars man the centralized Sharia governance system? Number one, by mixing local and international Sharia scholars from the Central Sharia Advisory Council. There is no harm. We have the likes of Professor Akram Al-Din, Professor Dr. Muhammad Dawood Bakar, and others from countries of best practices. They can mix with our local scholars here in East Africa to allow transfer of knowledge to the local capacity, to the local Sharia scholars. Then number two, promote continuous professional development, that is CPD programs. This is common, not only in Islamic banking, even in other fields. It is common that that local capacity can be built on the job through continuous professional development programs. Then lastly, these three countries and others can establish a strong secretariat for Central Sharia Advisory Council. I know in Uganda we have that challenge, and in Kenya they are facing the same challenge. That's why they are delaying in institutionalizing that Central Sharia Advisory Council. But government or central banks here in East Africa need to develop a strong secretariat for that council with the officers who have the best knowledge and exposure in Islamic finance industry and in also Sharia matters. I beg to stop here.
Thank you very much, Brother Ludia. We have benefited a lot, and we wish we could continue further, but as you know, time is our scarcest resource, and in particular in our meeting here. So thank you very much, and I hope you remain online because there will be a time of question and answers at the end. Probably, if there's anything else to aid, you'll get an opportunity by then to do that. So thank you, brother.
All right.
Okay. Now, may I call Madam Sabra Isamachano to present her case on Islamic finance and financial inclusion. Briefly, Madam Sabra is the Executive Director of Warrior Women Foundation in Tanzania, and her background is an economist. She did her BSc Economics in the University of Dar es Salaam, after which she proceeded to the University of Manchester to do her MSc in Economics as well. Currently, she is the Executive Director of Warrior Women Foundation, as I said, and she is the former Managing Director of Zanzibar Social Security Fund, where she worked after working for some time at the Ministry of Finance in Zanzibar, from 2008 up to 2017. So with that wealth of experience and exposure, please welcome Madam Sabra. I know 10 minutes are not much, but you do justice to the time. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Chair, for a very nice introduction. Let me also just have a bit of a disclaimer. I'm not an Islamic finance scholar, but I am a user of Islamic products. I am a Muslim. I'm an economist, and I believe I have a platform enough. Yeah, and I believe I have a platform enough in my experience in the work to maybe be some authority to speak on this issue. Last year I participated in the same forum as the managing director of the SSF, and we were talking with ALHUDA on a possibility of doing what he was kind of, what the previous presenter talked about, an Islamic kind of product for Social Security. And we didn't reach as far because there's a lot of complications, but one thing that we did succeed on was we ended up just leveraging off a partnership with PBZ Islamic. So I remember there was a huge demand for people going to Hajj and using their funds. So we facilitated that, even though if people were, you're not supposed to get your money yet, maybe a 5 months, 6 months, I think there was a product, some Rahaba or something, one of those names. And so we managed with PBZ, and I think it was well received, and it was something that, so therefore we work directly with the bank and groups that send people. And so you find this forum here is way behind on what people need. People need this yesterday. We need to sit together and decide how is the best way to deliver the service to people. So I think that is, my previous topic was supposed to be poverty alleviation and Islamic finance, but it goes around the same area, whether poverty alleviation or financial inclusion, because then you're also talking about having poor people within the financial system. So that is the definition of poverty, pretty famous, we all know. And of course, Islam being a very universal religion, and it has a gender and a solution regarding to poverty and inclusion, and it's just not limited to Muslims. And if I were to quote the Quran here, there's an ayah, sort of Hashr, that says that وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينُ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ كَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنكُمْ. Such that this is so important to have an inclusion of a system so that wealth is not saturated by the rich only. So financial inclusion is part of the Quran, it's part of a system, and we're supposed to work through it. And normally in our religion, there's zakah, historically we talk about Baytul Mal and how that helped, but then again, where we failed or where we managed to mismanage, to institutionalize, and now we're pretending like poverty is not really a problem, or financial inclusion is like, but we're Muslims. You know, being poor is part of the problem. You know, it's mitihana. We keep doing that, and you don't have specific solutions to actually alleviate it as an issue. Whereas the more developed nations, they have education and human resource development as a huge investment in that area, which helps them improve on poverty and inclusion and other things. But for our areas, it's more like a lip service, and we have systems in education and development that do not really serve us. And then again, when you talk about inclusion, you cannot not talk about gender. Because within those in the pool of poverty, women share the huge brunt of suffering. Women share the huge brunt of work. And yet, we find that whether it's Islamic financing, whether it's conventional financing, there's very few solutions that are geared towards addressing this issue that is right there in our faces. And so, of course, Islamic banks, we know that they have better solutions. Let's say conceptually, through microfinance, there's tremendous potential to tap into, zakah, sadaqah, waqf, which will channel towards strategic and impact goal-oriented things. And also the corporate social responsibility or Islamic financing is supposed to truly help in inclusion, in improving life, in fostering development, socio-economic programs, supposed to. But then again, that's a system. And system requires people who actually need to then implement those systems that are put in place. So technically, Islamic financing should, it's a concept that contributes significantly into microcredit schemes. Like Muslim, it's for everybody and nobody should actually be left behind. But what we're seeing, and of course it's supposed to be, and it has some great solutions, it has helped in some great areas, but we'll see later whether it actually is looking towards failure or success in that area. So I did a bit of the differences in terms of conventional banking and Islamic finance, how it's supposed to be, vis-a-vis, and of course we cannot forget how conventional banking led us to financial crisis one after another, and there's more coming and there's more booming everywhere. And then of course we're assuming, and part of the reason of the rise of Islamic finance is that it's supposed to provide a solution to that. And so we're thinking that inclusion, and because it's not really trying to perpetuate the whole the rich getting richer, Islamic solution should be, Islamic financing should be a problem, should be a solution in financial inclusion. And the success, of course, Malaysia, there's a huge success in its infrastructural development in the use of Islamic financial products. There's increased use in humanitarian social services, business trade activities, not just speculation like trade markets like that. Of course, it's been talked about a lot in terms of prohibition of interest. But then again, it's also been shared how the industry also lacks a clear strategy which will help achieve its potential. And then there's the Sharia harmonization. We're Muslims, we can agree maybe Allah, or like very few things we agree on. There's small minor things, everybody has their own modality, and every Sharia board has its own approach, and everybody translated this, and again the harmonization becomes a huge problem. Everybody is a bigger scholar than the other, and then we forget that and we forget that. So we're there, we're stuck in that, we're looking for the missing link between Islamic finance and broad economic development. It's missing. Because Islamic finance is marching ahead without progress in social sciences and general economics and business activities, especially from the particular Islamic perspectives. And that's why you have a bank, but you don't have policies. You have banks, but you don't have regulations. You have this. Islamic finance is wanted, it's going there, but there's not enough systems in place to support it to make sure it becomes an actual success. So I said that I'm currently an executive director of the Warrior Women Foundation. So what our foundation does is we're looking to empower women financially and economically so that to help alleviate the issues. And this is mainly for small entrepreneurs, SMEs. So we're trying to help them get access to finance, markets, through training and things like that. And so, of course, I'm very open to hearing any suggestion if there's banks or anyone who, for solutions, because there are people who are willing and they need the services, but probably the terminologies and the issues are so complex for a normal, everyday person who's working in the SMEs. Yesterday we went to Feriapa, just to see, there's some women just carrying fish from a boat to sell it on the and imagine, all they need is 150,000. They just need 150,000 to improve so that wasinyanyasike on that level. But they can't find somebody to give them 150,000. That's less than $100. So how are we failing the youngest people? So how the lowest people? How is it financial inclusion if something like that cannot be delivered to them? So part of what we're trying to do is we're actually going to try to talk to financial system, financial benki and zile institutions that do this to see how can you best translate vis-a-vis the people who need the services, to include the lowest levels of society. Conventional banking has failed a lot of poor people, and we were hoping Islamic finance will actually help them. But with how everything has been discussed, you can see that Islamic finance as a terminology has Islamic Sharia around it, but in practice you find it's pretty much doing the same thing, and still the inclusion part of it is being left behind. So I can say that we're dealing with the issue of poverty inclusion that marginally and very superficially. So in Islamic finance, then in Islamic economics, it's becoming more as a counterpart to conventional economics, instead of creating its own system to make sure that it becomes sustainable. So we're hoping, while Islamic finance is very successful and it's seeing a lot of growth, but then when you look at it, and if you've heard of it, it's simply we focus a lot on prohibition. We're Muslims, we do this. We like pointing fingers. God doesn't want that. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. You're going to hell. You're doing that. But then nobody really tells you, how should I do it? How should I move? How do I go from step A to step B? Now, Islamic finance is it's pretty much going around the same area. So we're focused a lot on the Sharia compliant part, and so the legal part, but not in terms of creating products and services that will best serve different members within the society. And with the Quran, we know that there's a lot of emphasis to help the poor. Yeah, in time? 2 minutes, no problem. This is my final slide. There's a lot of emphasis in helping the poor and addressing injustice, you know, and we're supposed, you know, we're supposed to do that as Muslims. It's our obligation. And so we're hoping that through this forum, as ALHUDA has a lot of partners globally and does a lot of things, we're hoping they will do more to address this area of inclusion, to address the lower people. And we have to study the problem of poverty in the Muslim world. Because with the way our faith is and the way we internalize issues, it's very hard for people to speak out. Because people feel like if they speak out about their problems, then but actually if you don't talk it out, then how can anyone help you? So there's a very interesting, delicate balance there. And I think the Muslim economics and Islamic financing really need to come up with practical solutions in order to grow and prosper Islamic industry. But then the challenge, if they do not do that, the challenge of poverty will continue unabated, even though positive outcome, if we do address these things, and they do know this, I believe that it has a huge potential, and as we know, Mungu will say, so since the principles are there, I think what's left is our job to figure out what is the best way that works for each person. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Sabra, for the presentation. And now I'd like to invite Brother Bilal Levin, who is the Vice President of Takaful Africa and Asia and Apex Insurance Brokers in Kenya, to present to us Takaful, a niche market. Briefly, Brother Bilal is a Sharia practitioner with a solid background in Islamic finance from INSEF. INSEF is the International Center for Education in Islamic Finance, which was created by the Central Bank of Malaysia, called Bank Negara, in order to build capacity of the practitioners in that area. He established Kenya Takaful and has held various training on media and national television. He sits in a couple of Sharia boards in East Africa, and currently he is the Vice President of Apex Insurance, as I said earlier. And without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Brother Bilal. You have 10 minutes. If the slides are not ready, you can start by speaking. I'm sure you have a wealth of experience which can do justice to the topic. Please, you're welcome.
Initially, it was a 20-minute presentation, then it went to 15 minutes, and then it was further downgraded to 10 minutes. I hope it will not be further downgraded to 5 minutes. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good afternoon to all of you. A lot has been said on Islamic banking, and we have various frameworks established, alhamdulillah, in Islamic banking. But when we look at takaful, there's no much developments. So I will just talk about takaful as a niche market. So let us look at what insurance is basically. What is insurance? How do we define insurance? So insurance is an agreement. According to Lloyd's market, the people who establish Lloyd's, insurance is an agreement between two parties. A party which buys the policy gives money to the insurance company, and the insurance company who actually pays back money for what? So what is the subject matter here? The subject matter is not fire. If you're going to purchase a fire policy, the subject matter is not going to be fire. Sorry. So, what is the subject matter? You're going to buy a fire policy. What is the subject matter there? The subject matter is not the fire policy. It's not the bricks which you're going to pay in case there's a fire. What the insurance company is going to do is going to come and give you money. So, in essence, what is insurance? It is an exchange of money for money. It's fine, it's okay. So it's an exchange for money, which is automatically haram in Islam. Yeah. So for this reason, scholars actually view the insurance contract as an exchange contract. So money is being exchanged for money. Now, insurance per se is not haram. Insurance started long time back. When we talk during the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, there was a system of akila, whereby people used to contribute money in case there's a calamity which comes by. Also, for the sake of blood money. So it's been there even during the Holy Prophet's time. Okay, even during Nabi Yusuf's time, we've heard a couple of stories about Nabi Yusuf. So it has been there. Insurance has been there. So, what is the issue? Why is it haram? Why do we see insurance being haram? There are specific objectives, specific things which happen in insurance which Muslim scholars say it actually haram. One of them, of course, is uncertainty. One of our panelists mentioned gambling, massive. We know what gambling is. Interest, riba, of course. The fourth one is underwriting plus the investment profit which comes in. It all goes to the company, which is not supposed to be the case. That profit is supposed to be part of the policy holders. Now, let us just look at what takaful is. I'll just give you an example here. Takaful basically is here, like we are almost, how many people? 30 to 40 people. We gather up together. We decide that we want to create a fund. This fund, we are all going to contribute towards this fund. And in case there's a calamity, there's a loss, we are going to pay from that particular fund. That is takaful. It brings the essence of brotherhood, whereby you just want to ensure that any of our brother or sister comes into a calamity, comes into a loss, then we can actually give out some of the funds from that fund which you have created to just compensate him. right? In the Holy Quran, we have seen various verses about reference from the Holy Quran that we need to help each other on the essence of bir wa taqwa, virtue basically, okay? And we are not supposed to help each other in harm, okay? So basically, takaful is a form of mutual help, and we need to help each other in hardships. We have seen references from hadith where the Holy Prophet ﷺ, peace be upon him, said that you tie your camel and then you leave it to Allah. So you want to park your car outside there and then you say, I leave it to Allah, while you have not locked the car. Then you have not left it to Allah. You have left it to the thieves to come and steal it for you. Now, so takaful provides a strategy of risk mitigation or reduction of virtue by collective risk taking that distributes the risk and the losses, okay, to a large number of participants. The Fiqh Academy, Islamic, we'll just go through on how takaful came up. Islamic Fiqh Academy had a meeting in Jeddah in 1405, which was almost in the 1970s, and issued a resolution saying that the commercial insurance contract is prohibited according to the Sharia, and they came up with an alternative takaful, which was actually Sharia compliant. Now let us look at the basic elements of takaful. Mutuality and cooperation. We talked about brotherhood here. We talked about, cooperation, we all coming together. So one of the elements is mutuality and cooperation. So it contains, the second one, it contains tabarru. Tabarru is whereby we all come together and contribute towards it. Alright? So it's based on contribution, which is against the caste of our dad, based on the conventional insurance. Okay, we talked about contributions, that is the third one. It eliminates, takaful eliminates gharar, maisir and riba. Okay, so in takaful we have various models which we use, models of operation. We have wakala, mudaraba, waqf. So we are going to choose which one we want to use. That's one of the elements of takaful as well. It's based on shared responsibility. So we are sharing the responsibility basically. So the other one is that it has a fund. That fund we call it contribution fund. So in takaful it has a fund. All the contributions, all the premiums we collect go to that fund. So that's one of the main element of takaful. It has a Sharia supervisory board. It is a must, any Islamic financial institution to have a Sharia supervisory board. And then the investments are as per Sharia. Now what are the main drivers of takaful? Intention is very important. You are here together, we are coming together to help each other. So intention is very important. Mutual assistance. We talked about brotherhood. It is very important that we get together. We have that brotherhood, unity. If we don't have that, we're not going to succeed. It's based on charity, contribution. Okay, these are the drivers of takaful, based on mutual guarantee. So we all agree here that every person is going to remove this much contribution, and if there's a loss, this is the amount of money which is going to be paid. Okay? Community well-being. So we're looking at the well-being of the whole community. So if you're all coming together, we're looking at the well-being of everyone. And unlike profit maximization, we know the differences between takaful and conventional insurance. In conventional, it is based on profit for shareholders, while in takaful, it is mutual for participants. In conventional, is basically transferring the risk. So you're just transferring the risk, while in takaful, it's cooperative risk sharing. In conventional, you are maximizing the profits, while in takaful, it's all about affordability and spiritual satisfaction. The regulation is the normal secular regulation, while in Takaful is both Sharia and the country's regulation. One of the Sharia principles is that we have to follow the law of the land. So the management is done by the company itself, while in Takaful is a Takaful operator. The contract is a contract of sale in insurance, while we have various contracts in Takaful. We have cooperative contract, we have Wakala contract, Mudaraba with Tabarru contracts. Investments, of course, in conventional is based on interest based, while in Takaful it is a Sharia compliant riba-free investment. The surplus, the shareholders, the surplus goes back to the shareholders, while in Takaful the surplus goes back to the fund. Right? Now, Takaful through time, so it origins first in the Constitution of Medina. It evolved later throughout the Abbasid and then the Ottoman Empire. This insurance and these all and the banks, we all see them. The Ottoman Empire are the ones who established all this. It's just that once the Ottoman Empire fell off, then they took over, yeah, and then they revised those particular policies just to suit them. Okay, so serious efforts were made in the modern times in 1970s to come up with an Islamic alternative to conventional insurance. The first Takaful company was set up in 1979, and then various came in Bahrain, then Malaysia, then others followed up. There are 200 plus Takaful companies around the globe as we talk. The total global insurance premium for 2017 was $4,891 billion. That was Takaful contribution, while that basically accounts 5% of the total premiums. So this is expected to increase hopefully this year to $40 billion. There is still poor penetration of insurance in the Muslim countries, which is less than 1% of the GDP. Average growth rate higher than conventional insurance companies, which is 25%. So Takaful is growing at a 25% rate. Surprisingly, non-Muslims are using more of Takaful than the Muslims themselves. So there's need. I was just talking to one of my colleagues here, and we just after lunch, and he told me whatever happens, even if the government fails, we'll continue doing da'wah of Islamic finance. Models. We have talked about models. We have Wakala model, we have Mudaraba model, we have the hybrid model, which is a mixture of Wakala and Mudaraba. We have the Waqf model. So we have various models, and of course the beauty of Islam lies in its plurality. So Islam is divided into Aqada, which is faith and belief, the Sharia, and Akhlaq. Where do we fall in Takaful? We fall under Sharia. So we have two ibadats in Sharia. We have the man-to-God relationship, which is the direct ibadah which we do, and we have the man-to-man activities, which include the political, which include the economic, which include the social activities. And where we fall, the Islamic finance falls under the economic activities. Takaful, if you just allow me 2 minutes, Chairman, I'm almost done. Takaful is basically insuring the Takaful companies. So when you talk about reinsurance means we are going to insure the insurance companies. So we need to have as well Takaful. So there are various Takaful companies as well around the globe. Now what are the target market? We are looking at people who do not insure due to religious reasons. We need to look into that. People who insure and are incentive to religious reasons, and people who currently do not insure at all. So these are our target markets. What are the challenges to Takaful? We have skepticism. Why do we have doubt in what we are doing? So we need to do a lot of da'wah again. Lack of uniformity in Sharia decisions. I think the last previous presentation was regarding that. We have regulatory issues, capacity constraints due to inadequate Takaful, limited investments avenues, HR issues. We don't have enough scholars for that. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Brother Bilal.
And I would like now to welcome Dr. Huda Ahmed Yusuf. Dr. Huda will present on takaful, but specifically it will be on the resilience of takaful. Dr. Huda is an economist with a PhD in comparative finance from University of Islam Malaysia. She is affiliated with MUM, Muslim University in Morogoro, as a researcher, and earlier this year the President of Zanzibar and Chairman of the Revolutionary Council appointed Dr. Huda as the chairperson of Zanzibar Social Security Fund. Dr. Huda, the floor is yours.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Dear Professor Muhammad Hafid, the chair for this session, all the professors in this room, CEOs, managing directors of different organizations, invited and registered guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and very good afternoon to you all. Okay, my topic today is on resilience of takaful. Okay, we have heard from previous presenters. Sorry, I'm not sure how to move this. Okay, we have heard from previous presenters throughout the day today that we are waiting for takaful in Tanzania, but we don't have it yet. I hope I have some messages of hope, some kind. Okay. The core foundation of takaful is what ta'awan is said by the previous speaker, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Meaning that we should help each other as Muslims. And the main difference between the conventional insurance and the takaful operators is that issue of the balance. Just now, conventional insurance, it offers us like indemnity. It's called to compensate us once we face a risk. But what about takaful? Takaful again compensates us when we face a risk, but when we are signing the contract, we know that we are signing for tabarruk. What is tabarruk? Donation. We are donating to help one another once any one of us face risk. So it is at the beginning of the contract. So as Muslims, what are we supposed to do at the beginning of anything? We should ask ourselves. Most of the time we say Bismillah, right? Yes. Another thing is niyyah. Innamal a'malu binniyah. First thing, we need to purify our niyyah. Yes, we do not have the takaful yet, but in circumstances we have to insure ourselves anyway. But what is your intention when you go and buy that contract? Most of the time our intentions are, in case I face any risk, I'll be compensated. Very selfish. We are thinking about ourselves, me, eh? But it's against the ta'awanu and tabarruk. But we can, and you know very well that when you are having that intention and you're signing that contract, you may not face the risk, that is gambling, or if you face the risk, you will be compensated more than what you have contributed. So again, in that contract, you know there is lots of uncertainty and there's gambling in there, and these things are prohibited by Islamic contracts. So at least, as we are waiting for that takaful to come, let's at least start with purifying our niyyahs. Let's get rid of that selfish approach. When you are signing for your contract, insurance contract, most of us, at least we have health insurance, and of course, social insurance, ZSSF, so social security fund. These are social insurances. When you go there, you are buying an insurance contract anyway. So let's just purify our intentions. You put that money in, but you know that either you will face the risk or your fellow human being will face the risk, and that money will be used. And if they are not facing the risk and you are facing the risk, that means they are also helping you. I am in no way Islamizing conventional insurance here, but at least Islamizing our intentions. Okay?
Would you say that again?
I am not Islamizing conventional insurance. I am Islamizing our intentions with the collectivity. Okay, my main concern is economics is efficiency. Sorry, I don't, the presentation is not showing yet. Okay. My main concern is efficiency. And why efficiency is important? Okay, I have a diagram here to show, but it's not coming. Okay, efficiency is important because, okay, the functions of takaful have been mentioned. To risk bearing and risk pooling, and there's this financial intermediation. They take the money just like banks, and they do financial intermediation, and also, of course, finance us once the risk happens. So before this, we have to submit our money, contribute our money. What you contribute has two parts. One is the money that you're going to be compensated with, and the other part is the loading value or the administrative fees. Sometimes when you're using wakala model, it's very open, it's the wakala fee. But if you're not using the wakala model, it could be but in most cases, in takaful, this amount is open. Whether it's in mudaraba, then you know how much percentage you're going to share with the takaful operator. Then the efficiency part will be very helpful to this loading value because, of course, the compensation, the amount that you're going to be compensated is still based on the asset you are insuring. But how much is the administrative fee? Again, previous speaker talks about high cost of administration in our social insurance. Then maybe we should think about our efficiency. Because if you are efficient enough, you may have charged lower administrative costs or lower loading fee. That will increase the penetration level for the takaful. Of course, yes, takaful is like Islamic compliant, but we need also non-Muslims to buy takaful contracts, right? So, or to participate in takaful. So if it is cheaper, it is inviting more people, right? So we need to be efficient so that we can have reasonable loading values. And again, sometimes you think, okay, if the administration fee is low, then there is a possibility of inability to survive for takaful operators. But to be honest is that if you are efficient, if the takaful operator is efficient, or in that matter any insurance company is efficient, even though they charge lower loading value, the possibility of survival is higher. And if they are not efficient, even if they charge higher loading value, still they may not be able to survive long term. Okay, I wanted to say that we can always measure efficiency, and I have tried to measure efficiency of takaful operators in comparison with conventional insurers in Malaysia, where both systems are well established. I used data envelopment analysis, and I had to select inputs and outputs. So I used this kind of production approach to select first efficiency, because we need to know what are the inputs, and then how do these inputs create output. So as output is claims and invested assets, and then inputs were labor, business services, and then capital. Most of the time you see, okay, if the outputs are claims, where are the contributions in terms of inputs? Contributions are part of the capital. As previous speaker said, policyholders in takaful are actually the shareholders, they are the owners. And most of the research previously, because we can relate takaful as mutual insurance. And as we see, most of the time, mutual insurance become less efficient as compared to stock insurance. And then you can see if the output also is investment. One of the outputs of insurance is investment, or takaful operators in investment. If you compare the investment opportunities for conventional insurers and takaful operators, you can feel like takaful operators are actually very much binded when it comes to investment. They don't have as much room as conventional insurers. But surprisingly, the results that I got from Malaysia are opposite. Takaful operators are actually more efficient than conventional insurers. So takaful operators can be more efficient than conventional insurers. I got this result for all, managerial efficiency, and in some years they are actually significantly more efficient. Also cost efficiency and even revenue efficiency. How do they, and I found also size is very important to the financial resilience of the capital operators. They should not be too big, and also they should not be too small to manage. How to get there, how the capital operators can achieve this efficiency. Of course, first proper actuarial valuation so that they don't take extremely huge risks. Second thing is we've been talking throughout the day, innovation in terms of investment. We need to innovate as Muslims. Doesn't mean like we have few opportunities. Those opportunities were not right in the first place. That's why Allah does not allow us to invest in those opportunities. So we need to be innovative. Like we need to be efficient in our thinking as well. Then the size. Size needs to be appropriate, neither too big, not too small. And I wanted to add on innovation when it comes to investment. Now, alhamdulillah, with East African community, we have wider range of investment, not only in Tanzania. So I'm praying for, we have our takaful in Tanzania, inshallah. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Huda. And while we clap for Dr. Huda, we would like to welcome Mr. Pervez Nassim, with the Chairman and CEO of Ansar Financial Development Corporation in Canada. He'll be presenting on Islamic finance. 10 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi. Welcome, brother.
Jazakallah. From Toronto, Canada. I'm speaking to you. It's my honor and pleasure to be with you. Alhamdulillah. I just want to share a couple of things here. One is that Islamic finance. What is Islamic finance? Why do we need that? Why do we promote this? The basic concept of Islamic banking and finance. So I'm not able to do that. Here it is. This is the most important thing for us to understand the concept as revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. You don't need to repeat that, we all know. In other words, we human beings do not really own anything in this world. We are just a trustee. We all have to account for any and all breaches of this trust, abuse, misuse, and injustice. So we have to keep these things in our focus, in our mind, when we talk about Islamic finance, Islamic banking. Here we are. We come to this world with nothing, not with even with a diaper. And when we leave this world with nothing material, only our good deeds and bad deeds go with us in our graves. So that's another thing we really need to focus on when we're talking about Islamic banking and finance, and when especially when you are practicing and preaching about it. Sharia law requires Muslim, we have honesty and integrity, expect blessings and rewards from the Creator in addition to monetary benefits, be truthful and not to deceive, be conscious of social and environmental cost benefit rather than just monetary benefit. Usually, we as a business people look at monetary benefit only. What's the bottom line? But there's much more than that. And I give you an example. If, as a businessman, I'm establishing a factory and I have 3 different pieces of land where I can establish this factory, normally, so whichever is the cheapest, I go for it. However, suppose if in one of the land there are some people living, some families are living and you have to uproot them, or there is a cultivation, trees, fruit trees, whatever, so we are not supposed to uproot them. and disturb them. So we'll go for a little bit higher option, but save the environment. Misconception about Islamic banking and finance, simply some people think Islamic banking and finance means conventional banking and financing, and just delete the word interest and add the word profit. Is it as simple? Certainly not. It's much more than just changing the words around. Now I will share with you Islamic Cooperative Housing Corporation, why we established this in Canada. We Muslims were migrating from different countries, and you mostly were students. But later on, we decided to stay, we got married, got families, needed a house. How do we purchase a house without interest? That was a big challenge. So some of us put our heads together and tried to find a made-in-Canada solution for our situation. We also had some savings, which we did not want to put in the bank and collect interest. So we found a way how we can put our resources, our funds together and help each other. And we established this cooperative in 1980. The purpose of this is to help Muslims invest their saving and earn halal income, and at the same time help each other in buying houses for us. The maximizing the profit is not the best. Charity and social responsibility is part and parcel. That's the core value. So this is where we established this cooperative. This is the first Islamic financial institution in North America. The model, Sharia model we adopted, Musharaka Mutanaqisa, decreasing partnership model. And the reason for that is for its simplicity and practical nature for the long-term transactions. It's easy for us to administer and manage Murawida. It's much simpler than Musharaka. However, we realize that buying a house is not a short-term transaction. It's not like buying a car that you can buy over a period of 2-3 years. It may take 10 years, 15 years for people to complete 100% ownership. So that's why we adopted Musharaka Mutanaqisa model. And it gives you some flexibility. So essentially, this is just a partnership between the family and the community. Again, partnership between Islamic financial institution and the prospective homeowner. This cooperative is being managed by volunteers, and the main objective, again, to facilitate our committed members the opportunity to buy a house for their family without indulging in riba, and with as much security and flexibility as possible within the taxation and legal framework of the country. And this is very important. We have to comply 3 different legislations. First, of course, is the Sharia law. Second is the taxation. And the third is the act under which we were incorporated, Cooperative Act. So we had to comply all 3 of these legislation to meet our objective. So this is basically the mechanism, the purpose that we keep the investment, the saving of our members, individual fund as flexible as possible, so people can buy shares and sell shares easily without any cost. And to maintain the security, of course, those who are buying shares and they're purchasing houses, so we have to keep their security intact, and we share the gain and loss in the value of the house from the rental income, and we pay dividend to the shareholders calculated quarterly each year. Membership type, We have prospective owners, of course, home buyers, and under the interest-free basis, simple investors. Some people, they just want to invest. They have no desire to buy a house at that moment. The people who purchase a house under the cooperative scheme, there's another category of members. And then we have a number of institutional investors, mosques, charities, Islamic centers. And it is also very, very important because many mosques and centers, they be built, people raise funds and keep money in the bank and until they start their project. With this, they can put this money, invest in the shares, and they earn dividend. And when they need their money to start their project, they can sell their shares and get their money back. And this is another category we added, the children and grandchildren. Many parents and grandparents have made their children as members so they can save money for their future, for education and marriage and whatnot. Now we see grandparents coming to the co-op office and making grandchildren member. One day old baby become member. In order to join the cooperative, pay membership fee, $75 once you join, and commit minimum to buy 6 shares of $100 each. Invest first and buy shares, and then you can buy a house. You will qualify to buy a house. In order to qualify to buy a house, you contribute 20% of first 100,000 cost, 25% of next 100,000 cost, and 30% of over 200,000 cost. So this is how we try to accommodate as many members as possible with the limited funds. Of course, we don't borrow money from any bank or any other institution. It's all our members and shareholders' funds. When members buy a house, they choose the house, we purchase them, pay cash, we take the ownership in the name of the co-op, and then members, they pay a proportionate rent. And they are allowed to increase their ownership over a period of time by buying additional shares every month or every second month or whenever. When they buy additional shares, their proportionate rent goes down in the same proportion. So the rent decreases as ownership ratio increases. At the end, when they complete 100% ownership, they surrender their share certificates and the co-op transfers the legal title to them. And at that moment, we evaluate the house and any gain or loss, co-op share 10% and member share 90%. Legal ownership, as I mentioned, remains to the co-op until they complete 100% ownership. This is a security for the investors. This is a form which members recalculate their rent for the following month based on this formula. So as they increase their ownership, their proportionate rent goes down, and this gives an incentive to buy as many shares as possible and complete 100% ownership as soon as possible. And in some cases, our members have completed 100% ownership in 7, 8, 9 years, as opposed to 25 years mortgages.
Brother Luis, you have about 3 more minutes to conclude, please.
I will try my best, inshallah. There are cases people have to sell their house because they need a bigger house or a smaller house, or people move to another city or another province. Then they are allowed to sell this house, and at that time, if their ownership is more than 50%, then the co-op still share 10% and membership 90%. However, if it is 50% or less, then co-op share 20%. And member share 80%. This is how we distribute the rental income as a dividend. Co-op is allowed to spend up to 20% of its income. It must pay minimum 80% of its income as dividend to all the shareholders holding shares on quarterly basis. So here we are, members of the driver's seat. They can complete their 100% ownership as soon as they want. It's easy for them. This is another co-op. We launched 2 co-ops. one for different provinces, but works on the same principle. We purchased 880 houses, sold over $71 million worth of shares, and we gave dividend between 3.6% and 10%, $3.60 per share or $10 per share. For last year, 2020, it was 3.6% dividend, and membership has grown to over 4,900 in North America. And we still have some members from different other countries as just supporters and investors. We also established this Thaqaful program through one of the largest insurance company, and it is restricted only to co-op members. We have made an agreement with this company that they will offer this to other community members or to other policyholders. These are various other plans and services. We provide financing through other corporations. This is our web address, CONCERENCE.com, and we also established a first interest-free public company, Sharia compliant company in North America, Ansar Financial Development Corporation. It sold its shares on the stock exchange. And again, since the interest-free basis, everything is on this basis, and this is our address, and I will just thank you. I will try to rush through because of the limited time. I realize that, but I appreciate it, and I thank you and pray for all of our endeavors and what our brothers and sisters are doing all over the world. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Brother Pervez. And I've just got an announcement to make that Professor Dr. Kabir Hassan will be having some commitment, so he has requested that if he could join us immediately instead of waiting for the next panel discussion. Now with that, and with your permission, I'd like to welcome Professor Kabir, and the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
10 minutes, Prof.
10 minutes?
Yeah, I know you want to rush somewhere, so it's pleasing to us. Thank you.
Let me see. Okay, let me give my presentation. I didn't know that I was that quick.
Professor Kabir is from the University of New Orleans in the United States of America. So he is pleased to have a meeting, making it more international with the brother Pervez from Canada and he from